I'm saying Hitler defended himself in Christian belief. He used nationalistic German ideas. He said, this is what Germany was, this is what we want Germany to return to. And that's why he rose to power. He rose democratically.
Okay. So first of all, I'm not going to get too deep into this, but I think we should all, myself included, do a better job. Not everything is Nazi Germany.
Yeah, trying to say Hitler was a Christian. Sometimes I'm like, where are these people learning this information from? I genuinely want to know, like, what is being taught in these public schools?
An open dialogue. I believe the scariest thing about your beliefs is your eagerness to have a Christian theocracy. And I think that's the scariest thing about J.D. Vance as well. Can you defend it, explain how it doesn't, or how it goes with the First Amendment, and also how it won't affect people who aren't Christian?
Well, I don't want a theocracy. I want this. I want the Constitution. So I want a free society. But I am a Christian, and we have Christian roots, and we must understand that.
Yeah. Okay, the Christian roots. First Amendment, you don't see a little...
No, let's read what the First Amendment says. So what do you think the First Amendment says?
Freedom of religion, freedom of speech.
Right. So how is that an issue?
It's not. You can be a Christian in the U.S., obviously. But I think what you're promoting, and you've been J.D. Vance's biggest supporter.
I'm a huge J.D. Vance supporter, but I'm not going to speak for him. I'll speak for myself. Fair enough?
Yes, that's fair.
Got it. But no, what's the issue with the First Amendment?
So now what they're talking about in this debate is should religion be in politics? That's what he's saying. He said a Christian theocracy or something along those lines. He said that Charlie Kirk symbolizes that and that J.D. Vance also symbolizes that. I don't know if they do. I haven't even really thought about it on that deep level. Does J.D. Vance and does Charlie Kirk symbolize a Christian theocracy? I don't know. But anyways, let's get into this. I hope this is a good video. Let's go.
I have no issue with the First Amendment.
No, but how is that irreconcilable with Christianity?
I see a danger with a Christian theocracy.
Well, I agree. I'm not a theocrat. I want a free society.
You support people who are Christian theocrats.
Well, it depends. I mean, I might agree with them on certain issues.
Vance is a huge Christian theocrat.
Again, I will speak for him on this. He wants what I want. He wants a restoration of a free society.
He wants a Christian society.
Well, a Christian society is different than a theocracy. Well, you'd agree. If you want the most Americans to be Christian, it's different than the composition of the government that you want, right?
I agree with that.
Yeah, so I want a revival of Christianity in this country. I want people to give their life to Jesus in huge numbers, but I want a government that is rooted in the Constitution and is a Republican, small r Republican form of government.
Fantastic. You defended that very well. I think you often correlate that Christianity to the loss of masculinity in the country. Would that be correct?
Sometimes. Yeah, I think that as America has become more secular and feminine, we've become less Christian, for sure. But I think that men who understand the gospel and understand the scriptures will take ownership of their life, of their family, and then their country, for sure. Okay, but there's exceptions to that.
You have said that lost masculinity and also persecuting whites has been leading to Auschwitz, correct?
Well, that's not exactly what I said, but yes, I said if you single out a group based on skin color or heritage, that is how you get Auschwitz, which is quite a statement, but there's a lot of steps and sequences before you get to Auschwitz, but yes.
We don't see any dichotomy with that and being a Christian society. Well, that's how we get there. If you look at...
Oh, okay, so you think Nazi Germany was Christian?
I'm saying Hitler defended himself in Christian belief. He used nationalistic German ideas. He said, this is what Germany was, this is what we want Germany to return to. And that's why he rose to power. He rose democratically.
Okay. So, first of all, I'm not going to get too deep into this, but I think we should all, myself included, do a better job. Not everything is Nazi Germany. Do we agree?
Yes, you did say that.
No, I said I could do a better job of that, right? Okay. So there are plenty of other examples in history to point to that are not Nazi Germany, right? Yeah. But this idea that Adolf Hitler was some sort of like devout Christian or would use Christian symbology or imagery is very, very flawed. He was a nationalist socialist, mind you. Nazi literally means the Nationalist Socialist Workers' Party. But there were a lot of Christians and pastors that he imprisoned and killed, Dietrich Bonhoeffer being one of them.
Yeah, trying to say Hitler was a Christian. Sometimes I'm like, where are these people learning this information from? I genuinely want to know, like, what is being taught in these public schools? Jesus Christ. I would actually argue Hitler was anti-Christian. He was probably anti-Christian. I don't think he believed in the divinity of Jesus Christ, which is the fundamental floor of Christianity. Believing in Jesus Christ. I don't think Hitler believed in Jesus Christ. I would actually argue he was anti-Jesus Christ. So to use Hitler as an example on why I guess a Christian theocracy is bad. It's a weird choice to do. It's very strange, if I'm being honest, because it's just not true. There are a lot of things that you can use if you're anti-theocracy or anti, I guess, Christian politicians. But Hitler? I don't think that's the best option, my man.
There was a lot of conscientious objectors in Nazi Germany that resisted Hitler. But the bigger issue in Nazi Germany was churches that did nothing. They didn't agree or disagree, but they were just sat idly by. And so what I say as a Christian, again, overusing the Nazi Germany comparisons, is we as Christians should not sit idly by when evil is occurring. And I think that's a lesson to take out of Nazi Germany.
That's right. Completely fair.
Cool.
But I think it goes beyond national Germany. I think a lot of nationalism has ties with religion beyond Nazi Germany. If you look at Cambodia, if you look at Turkey, if you look at Italy in the 1930s, they directly correlated religion with their nationalism.
Not always. Mao's China was explicitly atheist, right? Stalin was explicitly.
But Mao wasn't fascist.
Well, he was a murderer. He was really bad.
Yes.
Right? But again, how you define it, he had government control over everything. Mao was one of the greatest evils ever. Explicitly atheist. Stalin was explicitly atheist, right? So nationalism is also a very healthy thing at times too. It does not always lead to extreme horrors. Do you agree?
I think you can differentiate nationalism and patriotism.
Okay.
I don't have any fears with patriotism.
What I think is nationalism, what you probably think is patriotism, so I'll grant you that. But the idea, what we're living through is inverse nationalism, where we're told that our symbols are terrible, our history is crummy.
And I don't disagree.
No, you don't like that, right? No. But yes, nationalism can get too far, of course, but we're not even in that arena or that ballpark.
I think we are close to that arena. I think people believe that Trump's a messiah. That's what scares me.
I don't hold that view. Jesus Christ is my messiah.
I think people who support you hold that view, and that scares me.
I don't know if anyone here thinks Trump is a messiah.
That allows, he's equivalent himself to Jesus. Yes, he has. Yes, he has.
I've never heard that.
Yes,
I don't believe that. Meaning, I don't believe he is that, right?
Yes.
Jesus. And when I say Jesus, I mean Jesus Christ. I don't mean Trump. Where do I even start with this? Where do I even start? This is an insane, it is literally insane. Here's what I'll say to this. Referring back to the presidential election, Trump won the popular vote. And this young man said practically the majority of people who support Trump, or a majority of people who support Trump, refer to him as Jesus Christ. Don't get me wrong. Trump has a lot of people who really, really, really support him. But if what he was saying was true, are you saying that there are tens of millions of people in America who think Trump is Jesus Christ, or is a representative of Jesus Christ? Do you honestly think that? Because he won the popular vote. This would be a different discussion if he just had his little group of people who support him, but he won the popular vote. That means a big majority of people who voted for Trump. So do you think all those people just view him as Jesus? And if you do view that, if you do think that, I feel a little bad for you, because that's a really crazy conclusion to draw. Wow, that is crazy. I don't even really know how to respond to that. That was a very crazy thing to say. Let's continue.
But I think, let me ask you a question. In the current world we're in, would a nationalist movement or a globalist movement scare you more?
I believe within this country, a national movement. I'm not a globalist.
I know you're not.
I thought we should have gone out of Afghanistan. I disagree with a lot of left policies on globalism. I think for me, as not being a Christian, I'm afraid of nationalism. I'm afraid of how that leads to removing abortion rights. I believe that how that relates to only allowing immigrants who are Christian. That's my greatest fear.
Do you see and do you acknowledge that the inheritance of this great country was largely built by Christians?
The majority of the people in the country were Christians. That doesn't mean we are.
Do you think it has anything to do with why the country was great?
Oh, I'm not going to get trapped here. I'm not going to let myself.
Well, it's not a trap. I'm just like,
no.
Because it was a great country and most of the country was Christian. Are those two things two separate data points, or is there any reason why those two things were both true?
I think there's a link, but I think there's plenty of immigrants who were not Christian. I think Jewish people, I think, immigrants
for
of all
sure,
countries.
yeah.
Just because you have the majority of Christians in the country, and America being a great country, doesn't mean that they're inextricably linked.
Let's take the Christian element out of it.
Yeah.
Let's just say the majority of the country was religious. Do you think the country was better when most of the country was religious and going to a church, a religious service, believed that there was a God, that they believed that there was something higher than them, that there was something holding them accountable? Do you think the country was better then?
Depends who you were in the country. If you were a slave, if you were an immigrant, if you're a person who wasn't Christian being persecuted, I would say no.
1980s. We didn't have slaves in the 1980s.
No, we did not have slaves in that. Right, you're bringing up the moral majority.
Yeah, so like
Right,
the
yeah.
1980s, which objectively, there's this whole movement to bring back the 80s, right?
Yeah.
Was the country, was there anything to the point, I'm asking for a reason, when more people believed in God?
I don't think it was believing in God. I think it was we were just less polarized as a people in the 80s.
Yeah, so of course, you know my belief. My belief is that when a country becomes less religious, more secular, something fills that void, and that void right now is leftism. That void is BLM movements, the trans stuff, Democrat politics, and so you can have high opinions or low opinions of Christianity, but would you agree with Richard Dawkins, who's an atheist, that he likes Christian society?
Yeah, I think it depends what Christian society. I think a modern day Western Christian society, I don't necessarily have a problem with. I think sects of Christianity, certainly KKK, certainly FODS, I have problems with.
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna find any KKK here. So, yeah.
But those are the people. I'm saying.
Fair enough.
The far Christians are voting for Trump. The far Christians are not voting for Kamala Harris.
You're coming after this from a great perspective. I don't think you're gonna believe me, but I hope I plant a seed. That you have an idea that's largely pushed by the media, that there's a bunch of like super KKK radical people that are waiting to take over the country, when in reality your average Christians like this guy who just like wears a cross and I would imagine believes in Christianity because you have a cross. Okay, good. Not everyone does. And it's just like you know what I mean? Just like a pious person that believes there's a creator and we are not him, and wants to go to church service and is doing their best and falls short. You know, but what I'm getting at is the mechanisms of a religious society is good for everybody. When somebody walks around and thinks that you were created and that you're not God, you tend to have better citizens.
That's completely fair. I think religion that grounds a lot of people. I'm saying I experienced anti-Semitism because of someone's religion in high school.
I'm sorry.
They were not pious. You say everyone's pious.
No, not everybody. I
think it's less people than you think are pious.
Okay, fair enough. And you have a life experience that has shaped your view,
right.
and now you have.
You don't have that life experience.
No, I don't. I have the opposite perspective, and that's fair enough. Are you Jewish?
I am.
Okay.
I'm very secular about it as well.
Here's what I'll say, because I'm a Christian. I identify as a Christian. When it comes to real Christianity, it's good for a society. Real Christianity, real biblical principles will benefit a society. This young man said he faced anti-Semitism from a person who identified as, I think, maybe a Christian. I don't think he really specified if it was a Christian. He said because of their religious beliefs. I'm just going to assume he's talking about a Christian or something. When you have people who don't really embody what Christianity is, or don't really embody what their religion says, then you'll face issues. I say Christianity because I'm a Christian. Then you'll face issues. That's where the problems lie. These people are not real Christians. They are not real followers of Christ. And they think they are, and they parade as if they are, but they aren't spewing the words of God. They are spewing the words of the demons inside of them. They aren't actually talking from the Bible. They're talking from their hatred and using their hatred. Using the Bible to justify their hatred. That's where the problems come in. So I would actually argue he probably hasn't even met a lot of real Christians before. Real Christians who really embody what God says, what Jesus Christ says, the way Jesus Christ lived. He has not met many of them because there's not many of them. Few are, a lot are called, but few are chosen. Few are actually chosen to follow Christ. Few are actually chosen. Many are called, few are chosen. But that's the reality of the situation. There's not many real Christians. There's not many real followers of Christ who really, really live what God said. And that's happening in society. That's what we're seeing. But nonetheless, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. It's LFR Jojo, and I'll see you in the next one.